Welcome to the Hope on the Hard Road podcast, where you and your family can find community, find encouragement, and find hope for the road ahead. Before we get started, we want to let you know that we are about to celebrate our 5th annual date night for caregiving couples on February 15th. And if you're in the San Diego area, we hope you'll join us for this night of dinner and dessert, awesome speakers, and lots of fun and prizes. Just go to hopeonthehardroad.org and sign up now, and we'll see you there.
With our date night coming up on February 15th, on this episode, we're sharing last year's date night presentation. As caregiving couples, it is often hard to find quality time to connect. That is what our date night is all about. We hope you'll be inspired and encouraged by this message of hope on how, even under the hardest of circumstances, we can still thrive as teammates in marriage. Let's get started.
You guys are here tonight because of your kids, but you're also here, and we want to remind you, you are here because you are married, you are a couple, you were here before your kids, and we want to strengthen your marriage. We want to help with that. And so anything we say tonight, we are not experts by any means. We still are dealing. We are so in the thick of it. But our daughter's 19 going on 20. And so we've done recently all the adult stuff. For her, we needed to do conservatorship for her. And so, totally. Such a relief for our particular case with her. But yeah, so, we're in the thick of it, and we're not experts. And so the things we want to share with you guys tonight are, they're not tongue-in-cheek, but we just thought one thing we wanted to do tonight is kind of play off of the fact that we just had Super Bowl, and to have a little fun with that, and to talk about being teammates in marriage.
Yeah, definitely. And I tell you, coming up here and speaking this entire week, we've had a lot to work on as terms of being teammates. I mean, to be honest, we haven't hardly seen each other all day because we've been in both directions working, and I don't know about any of you with having a caretaker get sick over the week. We had a caretaker even today that, two in the last 2 days that have had some canceling, so scrambling to try to make ends meet and with caretaking and so forth like that. But definitely, we've been forced all this week in incredible ways throughout our entire marriage, but especially these last 2 weeks. Come up here, are we an expert? By no means, but we definitely have been forced to practice what we preach, we may say today, with teammates in marriage. But before we get into the practical advice of with each other, we wanted to kind of acknowledge who's the coach of marriage, right? I mean, God is the one that brought you guys together. Every couple in here, it's not by chance. It's not a coincidence. It's not a coincidence that you have the children that you have. God all has an entire plan. He brought together, and He's weaving something, and He's committed to you guys as a marriage, your guys' marriage, you guys together forming a team to raise your children, work with your children, continue through adult life. And then, going outside of there, we have seen, she mentioned, our daughter has an ability to go and love on people unconditionally that no one else can. I think go try to do it, but in terms of how she goes up and responds to complete strangers and just loves them, shines the light of who Jesus is in this world. And God designed all that, and God designed us to be her parents, and you guys to be the parents of who you have, to work with all that. And so recognizing that He's the coach and He has a master plan for all this.
That's right. So Jeremiah 29:11 says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you a hope and a future."
And so getting into this, we want to really make sure that we know the game plan, and at the key and heart of that is communication.
Yeah, exactly. So when you're part of a team, and I don't know if any of you are athletes or, any version of any team really, you need to communicate, right? It's essential. You know what the other players are doing or not doing, and when they're doing it and how they're doing it and all that stuff, right? So we have to know all of that about our teammate. or we're not going to be able to get the ball in the hoop or across the field or, right, the touchdown scored. So it's essential.
Yeah. And then there's like, who's going to do what, in your marriage? We need to know which person is going to do it. Sometimes things are done together. Sometimes, we have to split and do those things. But recognize what your talents are that you bring into the marriage, different giftings, different talents, and so forth like that, and then utilize those to, play to each other's strengths and getting things done.
Yeah, exactly. So, who's good at finances, right? Who's good at creativity? Who's good with organizing and planning? You want to sit down and think those things through, because it's okay to not be good at everything, right? It's okay if your spouse is better than you are at certain things. Mm-hmm. Sort of, kind of okay, right? The next point we want to talk about is what. You got to know about the what, right? So the what of the game plan, you need to communicate it in order for each teammate to know the objective of what you're looking at. So communicate the objective in order to execute the game plan as a team together.
Yeah, and it seems like with our families, there are so many whats. Man, how many different checklists do you have to do? How many different, organizations do you have to go and fill out forms for and go and advocate for your child? But, really advocating what is the need, what is the goal for each of those needs? And then sharing the win of the game planning. You really want to know it's an important concept. One thing is, you want to plan and prioritize when you're going to communicate, but definitely not avoid. Sometimes things are hard and it's easier to just avoid, but that's not a healthy way to go. It just kind of festers itself. But then also, just because you want to get something off your chest doesn't necessarily mean it's the time to do it. And you want to organize times that work for both of you so that you can get the most out of that communication.
Yeah, exactly. You want to sit down and talk with your spouse about when is a good time to talk. Dr. Charles Stanley used to always have this great analogy, acronym, I think they call it, right? HALT. Do not talk when you are hungry, angry, lonely, or tired.
You mean
and I'm
never?
Sure, yeah. Right. But I'm sure you can add so many things to that list. But it's such a great just tip for knowing, hey, if I'm in that situation, it's probably not a great time to talk. I need to kind of slow down. I need to, get something to eat, kind of think about my emotions, all those things. But be aware. And why. We need to know the why, right, behind the game plan. It needs to be communicated to your teammate. It is our core why that drives us as teammates. So when you think about it, you think about what's motivating to me, what's my why? And it can vary, right? It can vary based on so many factors. I mean, male-female differences, your love language, your Enneagram, your personality type, past experiences you've had. And so you want to kind of think about what's my why, and then take a moment and talk to your spouse. What's their why? What in particular, what's their core why? What keeps coming up for them, right?
Yeah, and it's not always an easy thing. You think that you would know what drives you, what makes you tick. Sometimes the things that trigger you, but it's not always an obvious thing. I know sometimes, I suppose mentioning, counselors are really good for helping you understand your own whys, because if you do, sometimes you're telling yourself a false narrative and so forth like that. So really, getting to this, what drives you? And do you need to feel safe, and communicate that with your wife, spouse, valued and seen? And being transparent with those feelings that you may have, because if you put it on the table, you're going to be able to be responsive to each other's needs. So I have a verse for this. It says, do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building each other up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen. That's Ephesians 4:29. Words to live by, only that build each other up. That's hard.
Especially in a week like this week, right?
Oh, man.
So throughout the night, we're going to give you guys a moment to talk with your spouse about these questions that we're going to bring up. So the first question, and you'll want to go maybe back through the sections, maybe just pick one section you want to talk about, but What is the who, the what, the when, or the why for each of you? So the next point of the night is moving the ball or teamwork. So working together is pivotal to getting the ball to where it needs to go.
Yeah, so you want to practice teamwork. Practice, yeah, makes perfect, but also perfect practice, right? So practicing
Progress. Practice makes progress.
yeah, doesn't it? So practicing working together is, crucial, for learning how to get the ball down the court. My experience before having to step into, special needs was being a coach, and you know, game days, you would get what you focused on during the week. If you practiced a skill and you were developing those things and you were prepared for those things, when it showed up in the game, you were going to respond how you practiced. And it's no different in marriage that, you want to practice certain actions on how we work together and completely think about it ahead of time so that when we get in these more tense moments and anxiety and so forth like that, you already have a pattern on how you guys are going to work through that. So practice working together as a team in all areas of life. And, we have so many different areas to, focus on parenting or, divvying up chores and how we work together with those, finances, looking at all the different things we have to advocate for our children. There's plenty of things, but then practicing teamwork.
Yeah, exactly. So something to think about is, are you practicing we instead of me? So next point is assist your teammate. Assisting your teammate is essential to actually moving the ball forward. Assist your teammate in life by anticipating their needs and helping set your spouse up for success. So if you think about when you're on a sports team or any other team, right? You want to assist the other players. You want to see them succeed because you're on the same team.
And this is really a huge step where you start thinking about the other people and you get out of your own skin where you can start looking at your spouse and what their needs is. It's really, in the spiritual journey, that's a big thing too, is like you're filled up and now you're able to go help other people, but especially in a marriage that is. So you're looking at it, are you looking to assist your teammate and hand off, or are you being a bit ball hog? Are you getting in the coach's face when you don't get the ball?
Ooh, little Super Bowl humor. All right, so 2 are better than 1 because they have a good return for their labor. Ecclesiastes 4:9.
So, what does teamwork look like for each of you? All right, so the next point that we're looking at is scoring the points. That's kind of an important thing in game, and in a game and in life, that's success in marriage. So when we think of success in a game, we think about scoring points. So what does success look like in a marriage?
Scoring as a team. Real success in marriage happens when we score the points together as teammates, work together unselfishly for the good of the team.
So a question to ask yourself, is, are you looking to score your own points, or is it about scoring together and the team winning? And then sharing success. That's kind of the next kind of point that we're looking at. We also succeed when we share in each other's successes, celebrating each other, celebrating what they do, and celebrating together as a team. Because when your spouse wins, you win, and don't compete with each other. And I'll tell you what, that's actually a challenging one. Coming as a competitive athlete and then being a coach, it's like you're competitive, and competition has a good thing, but it's not a good thing when it comes to a marriage. Like, this is your teammate, not the competition. So it should never be about that. And like literally self-reflective, it's been something like I've had self-check about. So
Yes. Are you taking turns celebrating each other's successes? Are you cheering on your teammate? That's another big question, right?
mm-hmm.
Pursuing relationship. Finally, we succeed when we pursue relationship over being right. Ouch. Work together as teammates to build up the relationship. Don't tear each other down. That's a tough one. It's not
really
tough because you want to tear down your spouse. It's because life happens and you get in the mix, in the thick of it, and it happens. And you start fighting to be right. And then you realize, the relationship is really what matters. So I need to give.
Well, and sometimes you want to finish the conversation with something because it's more efficient than actually being patient to walk through the whole situation. And yeah, no, it's a challenge there when what you're looking at. So ask yourself, do you want to be right at all costs, or do you want to succeed as a team? You know, because you guys, the team is what's the focus. Do nothing from selfish ambition or conceit, but in humility, count others more significant than yourselves. Wow. So that's Philippians 2:3.
So the last question of this section of the night is, what does success look like in your marriage? So we talked about knowing the game plan, moving the ball, and then scoring the points.
So in any competition, you got to recognize, that we have an opposition. There is another team in this equation, and to be aware of it. Then, yeah, it's very real. And so seeing that, when you're playing the game, you need to understand how that opponent is, how they work, when are they going to work. And it's just like that in marriage. We do have something that's opposition, and it's not either one of us.
Yeah, exactly. It's not really between you guys, right? It's when you're looking at the opposition, it comes from the opponent. So just like in athletics, it comes from the opponent. Well, it's important to know that the opponent isn't your spouse. The two of you are on the same team, and opposition comes from outside of your marriage, and often that comes from the enemy. And so don't be surprised. I think that there were times in our life and in our marriage where we were surprised, but don't be surprised. The Bible says that we are to anticipate opposition. 1 Peter 5:8 says, be alert, your enemy prowls around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour.
Yeah, those times where you feel like you guys are out of sync, there's probably a reason. And so being aware of that is key, and saying, oh, that's what this is, Are you aware that the opposing team is not your spouse? So then as we go through this, you want to know the opponent's strategies. This kind of, pulls the coaching side of me, knowing the opponent's strategies. The more you know their strategy, the better prepared you would be. And understand how they operate and start looking at the patterns. When I would coach, we would watch film over and over again, and you would just study them until you knew what happened on game day. You knew exactly what they're going to do, unless they did something completely different, which our enemy is far older than us, and it's very consistent on how they work. You can start anticipating it and prepare for it, and that's a big deal. You were able to do that when you coach. You could see how they were going to perform, what was going to take place, prepare for that, and then you recognize it. It's no different in marriage, being able to recognize those things.
Yeah, exactly. What patterns of opposition do you see? Do you see interference with getting together and communicating? Maybe chaotic situations seem to come up often and cause a wedge between you and your spouse. Maybe there's outside stresses. These are things to just think about. And then you want to counter the opponent. Any good game, right? You're countering their moves, right? So when playing against the other team, we need to proactively oppose the other team. Stand firm against your opponent.
Yeah, and I kind of think about this term kind of like most sports, they have a halftime, where you see what's going on, you gather together, you take almost a time out of situation, and then go out back, and you're able to say, okay, now this is what we see, this is what's happening, and now how we're going to move forward with it. So with you and your spouse, you want to be teaming up on that same thing, and discussing. It's like, take the halftime as you feel this coming at you, and, set up a game plan on what you're going to do to combat that and counter their attacks.
Yeah, exactly. So for the sake of time, maybe we'll let you guys talk about this after, but in what ways do you recognize the opponent's interference in your marriage? So that's something to really think about and definitely to talk about as a couple.
Yeah, and then in any competition, the thing that you're focused on is winning the game or victory. So when we're working together, that's when victory is really taking place. If we're on the same team, moving together, seeing the ball move down the court, scoring things, that's when victory is taking place.
Yeah, exactly. Define winning as a couple. When we think of winning, we think of victory, as Eric said. And Know your end game as a couple. Do you want better communication, better understanding of one another's motivations? We talked about what's your why, what's your spouse's why. Do you want more peace in your marriage? Questions to think about.
Mm-hmm. This is where that counselor piece can also come into play to help that a lot. So what does winning look like to each of you? And then winning as a team, that's kind of the whole basis. There's such sweet success, that's really just the idea of being together and working. And we recently saw the men in the boat, and we talked about that. It's a very unique sport where if you're just a little bit off and out of sync, rowing a boat together, then you're going to be, it's not going to be successful. But when you know and understand each other and you're in tune to each other and your moves are on the same page, how much success that you can have. And it's really, that's kind of the idea that we're looking at. So win by remaining unified. And that movie did a real good job of pointing this point out.
Yeah. How are you winning as teammates? As we leave this night, be thinking about that. Finally, all of you have unity of mind, sympathy, love, a tender heart, and a humble mind. 1 Peter 3:8.
Thinking about what does winning look like to you as teammates?
Check out the show notes to find resources and contact information for today's episode.
Yeah, and if you like the podcast, please share it with others and be sure to follow us so you won't miss an episode.
We love to hear from our listeners, so leave us a comment or rating and connect with us on social media or on our website at hopeonthehardroad.org.